Welcome to the Worth Listening podcast, where we focus on having positive and productive conversations around money. I'm your host, Lauren, a 4-time Olympian and certified financial planner. On this show, my guests share their money stories. Everyone has a unique story and experiences both wins and losses when it comes to money. My intent is to give listeners something they can relate to, something that builds their courage to be open and take control of their own money story. When I'm not creating a great show for my listeners, I'm running my company, Worth Winning, where I help individuals and families organize their finances. Check us out at worth-winning.com. All right, now on with the show. Well, summertime is in full swing, and I hope you all are having a good time hanging out with family and friends and being less cold. I know some people live in parts of the country or the world where it is never cold, but for most of America, it is summertime. And actually, I'd probably say it's summer for all of America. Alaska, is it cold up there right now? I don't know. Someone tell me. I feel like it's cold in Alaska all the time, but it could still be summertime. Okay, I digress. Neither here nor there. Today, we are talking about why money conversations are so awkward. What can we do to make them a little less awkward? How do we talk to people about money? How do I talk to people about money? It is not an easy thing. I don't know why it's so awkward, but I do know that that is the reason I started this podcast, because I want it to be less awkward for everybody. I believe that it's really important to have conversations with one another so that we can build a sense of community, build a sense of trust, build that transparency, and better educate each other. We are less likely to make mistakes when we're conversing back and forth and sharing ideas with one another about what's working and what's not working. It's really, really important for us to have money discussions so that we can increase transparency about money. I think often we find that we're not the only ones with these questions or these concerns. And by simply opening up and talking to someone about it, you get the opportunity to realize, hey, I'm not the only one. And, oh, by the way, there's a solution. Personal finance can be a complex world to navigate. And opening up will bond us together so that we can have allies to keep us on track so that we can reach our goals. So let's talk a little bit about me, because I'm not the least awkward money person on the planet. I'm actually probably one of the more awkward people, despite this being my profession. How open am I? I think I've become very open during this process. These solo episodes have been a great exercise for me to be open. However, it takes time for anyone to get comfortable. It takes time for me to think about what I'm going to say to you guys. It takes time to make sure that what I'm saying is authentic and that I haven't just buried the dark, lonely feelings of the things that I didn't like about my financial life and only tell you guys the good stuff. I'm still struggling to have money conversations with the people around me that are open and transparent, despite really trying. And I wouldn't say that it's necessarily different for family versus friends for me. I have trouble speaking to either. I talk incessantly with friends, and I've tried even sending out a message to everyone in my address book saying, I'm going to offer you guys my help. You're my friends. You're my family. I love you. I care about you. I want to see you do good. So just write back if you're not doing anything to organize your finances, because we know that the majority of America does not have a financial planner in their life. And we also know that even in the absence of one, you can do things to organize your finances, but that people are not doing that. People are not spending a lot of time getting organized and making a plan for themselves. But I think it's been hard for my family and friends to be comfortable with the idea of even discussing finances with me, because I'm a financial professional. And I think that actually works against me instead of for me. I'd really love it if my family and friends saw me as a resource. But it seems like it makes them a little bit intimidated that I am a financial professional and less likely to ask me questions about how to best organize their finances. And like I said, I try to be pretty open, but what I've bumped into with my family and friends is that I frequently hear people alluding to like my bank account being bigger than theirs, or me having more, being afforded more opportunities, etc. And I just get really frustrated, because what's to say that my financial health is better than yours? There's some of my friends, I'm sure, that are stacking money away in a mattress or saving every dollar because they're always talking about what they can't spend. But at the end of the day, it's not really about numbers. It's not about how much you have versus how much I have. It's not a competition. And I really wish that we could find a way for people to not be so focused on perception but to instead hone in on connecting with one another. I mean, I'm not retired, and we've talked about in previous episodes a bunch of financial mistakes that I've made. I'm still working on my goals just like everyone else. I'm not some perfect financial unicorn. And I actually desire to have discussions about my goals and what I'm doing and my strategies without the judgment of others and to have that accountability. That is why I have a financial planner, but I'd really like to be able to do that with family and friends as well. Because I think, like I said, that it's not just about one solo way of being able to have conversations, but being able to have conversations with multiple people. And honestly, the hardest thing for me is that these are people that I care about. So not being able to talk to my family and friends about money is very stressful for me because I want us all to retire together. I want everyone to be financially independent and I want to help. And there's nothing that I'm not willing to share if I believe it would help someone. It's hard because when I hear people talking about money or when my friends are sharing with me about money, it's usually brought up in the context of some sort of complaint. So there's a conversation about deadbeat dads and what baby daddies are not doing. The conversation of I hate math, so I can't even begin to think about my finances. I don't trust my husband, so we don't mix our money. And there's lots of like lament and woes. Or there's the lament and the woes of being an entrepreneur, which I'll admit I'm as guilty as some of my friends and us talking about how expenses always seem to exceed income and how when is this thing going to become profitable and what can I do differently? But I think it's really important that we shift the conversation into something that's going to be more productive energy. So I don't want to just have the conversations of what's going wrong, but I want to start having conversations that are forward thinking about how we can move forward, how we can have solutions to the problems that we do have instead of just talking about, oh, woe is me. So some of the things I found that help me are always, like I said, we always go back to mindset. And it's creating a mindset that when I'm talking to someone, that I'm talking to them from the perspective of I want to learn something new. And for me, that's changed the tone of my voice, which I think makes people more receptive to continuing the conversation. So when you approach something as the mindset of you're trying to learn something about people, it becomes a more inquisitive sort of question than it does an interrogative sort of question. People don't like to be questioned in a way that's like, well, why are you doing that? Well, what did you do that for? Well, when are you going to blah, blah, blah? So it's really important that people don't mistake your tone for interrogating them, but that it's one where you're genuinely interested in what they're saying and inquisitive about what the questions are. So that's one thing that's helped me have a new way to talk to people. And a really simple phrase that you can use is tell me more. So when someone says something and they start talking, instead of whatever your mind is thinking and drilling them with a set of questions, simply say, tell me more and let them talk a little bit more. And then that gives you a little bit more time to kind of put the piece together what questions are appropriate to ask to keep the conversation going. And then always look for a way to connect. Find the similarities in what someone is saying so that you can too say like, oh yeah, that totally happened to me. Or girl, I feel the exact same way. I can't believe that happened to you too. When you connect with someone, it makes them feel more comfortable to continue the conversation. And last but not least, I would always say to ignore the fear and refrain from judging. So like I said, it gets really scary. You start a conversation, you ask a question, and then they ask that question back of you. If you asked it, you should be willing to share the same information back. Avoid the fear that by you asking questions, you're creating an open and transparent environment where you're also going to be asked questions. It's okay to be asked things, and it's okay to tell the truth, good, bad, or indifferent. And when you refrain from judging, it creates energy where the person you're talking to is going to refrain from judging. Remember, nobody is perfect. There are no financial unicorns. So let's focus on having a more open approach to money discussions so that we can all better our financial outcomes. How can we close the wage gap if we don't know that we're being shafted? We've got to be able to have the discussions. And it's cool to have discussions without discussing dollar amounts. Like I said, that's what the whole premise of this podcast is. You'll find very few episodes where dollars and cents and money amounts are mentioned. And the reason is because I don't believe that it's about dollar amounts. It's about strategies. And you can have financial discussions with people without discussing dollar amounts. Here's some ideas of questions that you can ask. So one of the questions, what's the best piece of financial advice that you've ever received? That's a really cool way to get a conversation going with someone. And it gives you insight into something that's been wonderful in someone's life, gets the conversation started on a good foot instead of focusing on something negative about money. And then another question, what are your long-term goals? So we talk a lot about the here and now, but what is that person working for in the future? It gives you a better insight into what your friends have planned, ways that you can help them reach their goals. And then you can have a better conversation about, and it can help you frame what your long-term goals might be. Another question, how do you measure your financial success? So what tools are you using to measure financial success? A certain dollar amount that you're going to get to? You're able to save X number every month? What is the measuring tool of financial success? When do you feel like you will have made it? When will you feel like you've reached your goals? If you're looking for a different way to start a conversation, you could say, what is a question about money that you've always wanted to ask someone? That's going to cause your friend or family member to ponder a little, to think about it. And maybe you don't have the answer to it, but you're like, gosh, that's a really good question. Let's Google that together. Or maybe you have the answer and now you've helped them. And because you've helped them, you've opened up the door to continue the conversation. Next question. What percentage of your income do you spend on housing? And how did you come up with that amount? Now, by asking for a percentage, you have asked for a number, but you have not asked for a very specific number. So you still don't know if their mortgage is $500 or $5,000 when you ask about a percentage of income. And it's a much better way to think about it than to start comparing yourself. Because if the person says, I spend $5,000 on my mortgage and you spend $500 on your mortgage, you're like, oh my God, so-and-so makes so much more money than me. How do they afford it? And you start doing that back and forth. But if you think about housing as a percentage of your income, it opens the door for you to be able to like, oh, okay. So of what I'm making, if I can get my housing costs down to less than 30%, then I'm in a really good place. And you can start to have that discussion. And then you can also talk about, like you said, how did you decide on that amount? How did you figure out you're going to be able to swing that with your budget? And you've opened up the door to keep the conversation going. Another good question that you can ask is, how do you deal with large unexpected expenses? Do you have money saved up, or do you have someone you ask for help? This opens the door for you to be able to talk about my favorite subject, emergency funds. So you guys know I'm always a big proponent of having an emergency fund, and I think it's really important for people. So this is a cool way to be able to ask that question. Once again, you never had to ask how much. It was just a yes or no. Are you currently saving? If your friend says no or your family member says no, you can talk about, why are you not saving? What can I do to help you figure out how to start saving? And then ask them, how happy are they with how much they're saving? So it's like, yes, I'm currently saving. And it's like, are you happy with the amount? And it's like, no, I know I need to get that up a little bit. It creates awareness for a friend who might have put that on the back burner. Maybe they did their employer match, set it and forget it 3 or 4 years ago, and they never thought to bump it up again. So if you ask them how happy they are with what they're saving, you've created that awareness for them, and maybe they go and bump it up immediately. People like that kind of accountability. Another question, do you and your partner set a financial budget for your home? Really good question to talk about if you are in fact in a relationship or thinking about getting serious with someone. If you're already married and you're having a hard time talking to your spouse about finances, this is a great way to ask someone what they're doing and not have it sound invasive and get a good conversation going. Another good question is, have you ever successfully negotiated a pay raise? If so, how did you do it? We've frequently talked about how we're not making enough, but when was the last time you asked for more? Maybe the reason you haven't asked for more is because you have no idea how to do so. So one of my homies, Kwame Christian, has a cool podcast and it's called Negotiate Anything. I highly suggest you check it out. And I also, of course, highly suggest that you talk to somebody about how they have successfully negotiated a pay raise. Next question. What's one thing you wish your parents would have done differently financially? That's a really good conversation starter because it takes the pressure off of the person to talk about themselves, and it gives them an opportunity, one, to reflect back into their future about their financial history, different things that they have going on, but then also creates an opportunity for you guys to get a good dialogue going. And if you have student loan debt, another question you could ask is, what student loan plan are you on? You guys know I talk about student loans quite a bit because it's become an area of passion for me because I've seen so many people struggling with it. And there are so many student loan plans. There is IBR, ICR, REPAYE. There's the PAYE plan, standard, extended, graduated, or you could refinance, or you could consolidate, which are not the same thing, which I make sure I tell you guys every single time. Refinancing and consolidating are not the same thing. Neither here nor there. All those different options that I just gave to you are various plans. And choosing the one that's right for you can be really tough if you don't spend a little time thinking about your situation and what's going to be appropriate. So by asking your friend what plan they're on, ask them why they're on that plan, understanding why that's appropriate for them could help you eliminate that plan as an option for you, or it could help you look into something that you didn't even know existed. There's so many different plans available. You may not even know what options are available to you right now and need to look into that a little bit more. So I've shared with you a lot of different questions that you can ask to get money conversations going. And I think the biggest thing that I want to encourage you to do is find someone out there this week. Matter of fact, today, not even this week. There's no reason that you can't find someone in your life and ask them one of the questions that I listed today. I'm going to include the list of questions in the show notes so that you can get these conversations going. And I challenge you to do that this weekend over drinks with your friends, while you guys are having brunch, on a road trip with family, whatever the case may be. Let's get these money discussions going so that we can all be better at organizing our finances. Okay, that's all I've got for you guys this week. And as always, if you have questions, suggestions for guests, or you would like to share your own money memoir, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. podcast@worth-listening.com. Love you guys. Talk to you soon.